Hey guys, tonight we dive into a story that sounds like it belongs in some sleepy village folklore, but is actually as real as your favourite bedtime snack. You find yourself stepping into a tiny colonial settlement, the kind where the houses lean in on each other like tired old friends sharing secrets, and every little thing, every spoon, every chair, even a scrap of cloth matters more than you'd think. The air smells of wood smoke and damp earth, and the chatter is low, but behind it, you can almost hear tension buzzing, like electricity before a thunderstorm. You probably won't survive this story without feeling a bit frustrated at how humans can turn a simple object into the centre of an all-out standoff. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop your location and local time in the comments. Wherever you are, it's always interesting to see who's tuning in. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge through narrow dirt paths between clustered wooden homes, the kind where the walls are thin enough that every whispered argument and quiet sigh travels through like a breeze. Life in this settlement is a daily balancing act. Food is scarce, tools are precious, and personal space is something to dream about. The cold nights bite harder because wood is expensive, and the fire pit can't stretch far enough to warm everyone. You notice how each family, even each person, holds on tightly to what little they own, their fingers practically glued to their meagre possessions. It's not just about stuff, though. It's about survival and status. In this community, your worth sometimes hinges on small symbols, like owning a sturdy spoon rather than a cracked wooden ladle. Historians still argue whether utensils really define social standing, or if that's a modern exaggeration, but here you can see how such ideas might easily take root. Neighbours keep their eyes peeled. They watch who borrows what, who shows up with fresh clothes, or who suddenly disappears with someone else's belongings. You overhear hushed whispers about a spoon that has been passed around like a hot potato, its value somehow inflated far beyond its simple function. It's an object everyone wants, and nobody can agree on who should have it. This tiny settlement, tucked away from the hustle of big cities, seems like the perfect place for small dramas to become legend. And right now, you can feel the simmering tension, ready to boil over, around one very unlikely prize. That spoon you heard about? It's no ordinary utensil, crafted painstakingly from a chunk of polished bone or maybe a rare piece of carved wood. Historians still argue whether it was made by a skilled artisan or simply a lucky survivor from a shipwreck. It gleams with a worn smoothness that tells stories of countless meals shared and quarrels sparked. You can almost feel the weight of it in your hand, heavy not just with material but with meaning. It's been lost, found, stolen and gifted over the years, turning into a sort of talisman in this harsh world, where even a single spoon could mean the difference between dignity and desperation. The spoon's journey begins in a dusty workshop where a craftsman hammered away under flickering candlelight, shaping the handle with care. Maybe he imagined this spoon feeding a family for decades, or hoped it might someday pass down as a prized heirloom. Instead, it found its way to the colony under mysterious circumstances, shipwrecked, traded, or perhaps even plundered during a tense skirmish with rival colonists. The locals swore by its sturdiness, often bragging how it never bent or never broke, unlike the flimsy spoons made from cheap metal or brittle wood. But why would a spoon hold such importance? In those days, personal utensils weren't handed out casually. Owning a spoon was like owning a little piece of normalcy, a claim to a place at the table. People fought over food, yes, but more often they fought over the means to eat it without embarrassment or humiliation. There's even a quirky story that some believed this particular spoon brought good luck in harvest seasons, though that might just be superstition, the kind whispered after too many cold dinners. The spoon's value also came from its rarity. Imagine living where everything you need has to be scraped, scavenged, or traded for. Each item has a history layered with hardship, and every scar on that spoon is a badge of survival. You might smirk now thinking it's just a spoon, but back then, losing it was like losing a trusted ally. And here's the kicker. Historians still debate whether this spoon was genuinely a symbol of status, or if the legend grew larger simply because people love a good story about a fight over something small that meant everything. Either way, You can't deny the magnetic pull this little utensil has on the colony's fragile peace. The spark that ignited the whole mess over that spoon was, as you might expect, utterly trivial at first. You find yourself in the middle of a cold morning where the sun barely warms the dew-soaked ground. Someone, let's call him Thomas, a man with more stubbornness than patience, needed that spoon to eat his gruel. But surprise, it was already in the possession of Martha, who swore she'd borrowed it just the day before, and now refused to give it back. You watch as their voices rise, first low and grumbling, then sharper, echoing off the wooden walls of the neighbouring houses. The argument is nothing new. Small disputes like this flare up daily in cramped colonies. But this time, it snowballed. Thomas accused Martha of hoarding. Martha accused Thomas of selfishness. And before long, neighbours gathered, drawn in by the inevitable human drama of who owns the spoon? The conflict might have ended with a simple return or a shared use if the spoon wasn't already so heavily charged with meaning. This wasn't just about eating. It was about respect, trust, and who got to hold power in a community where power was thin on the ground. People started picking sides, whispering about the injustice of it all, and the spoon became a symbol for deeper resentments. And there you have it. Historians still argue whether the fight was really about the spoon, or if it was a proxy for bigger issues like land disputes or food shortages. But for the colonists, the spoon dispute was all that mattered right now. Rumours spread quickly. Soon the small argument turned into a full-blown standoff. Days passed with neither Thomas nor Martha willing to yield. You can almost smell the tension thickening in the air, like burnt toast left too long on the fire. People stopped sharing meals. Conversations turned colder. It was as if the entire community held its breath, waiting to see if peace would break or shatter completely. You have to admire the absurdity. How a single utensil, no bigger than your palm, could grip an entire settlement in its tiny claws, twisting friendships and testing loyalties, and yet, here you are, witnessing it unfold like the slowest, most tense reality show you never asked to watch. Now, owning a spoon in this colony was more than just about having a tool to eat with. It was a sign of status and survival. You stroll past the modest homes and overhear hushed comments about who has which utensils, and it's clear these little objects were markers of a person's standing in the community. The spoon wasn't just metal or wood. It was a badge, a statement, a tiny sceptre of domestic power. Imagine a world where forks and knives were luxuries, and spoons, particularly sturdy ones, were like gold. Historians still debate how much utensils truly signified social rank versus practical necessity, but in this cramped settlement, the lines blur. Owning the coveted spoon could open doors, literally and figuratively. It meant you had something others didn't, something reliable that said, I'm prepared, I'm worthy. This wasn't vanity exactly. It was survival wrapped in symbolism. A spoon could signal that you were part of the inner circle, trusted to share meals and secrets alike. Conversely, not having one marked you as struggling, maybe even desperate, someone on the fringes of the community's fragile order. You can almost hear the unspoken rules. Give your spoon to a friend in need, but never to a rival. There's a quirky fringe theory that some colonists believed their spoons held protective magic. Not just to eat, but to ward off bad luck or illness. One elder claimed his spoon was blessed by a travelling mystic and it never let him down. Though that might be the same guy who swore by wearing socks to bed to keep nightmares away. Back to the serious stuff, power dynamics swirled around this spoon like smoke around a candle. Whoever controlled it controlled a piece of the colony's social currency, and when food was scarce, and trust scarcer still, every tiny advantage counted. So when that spoon disappeared from one hand to another, you could bet the transfer wasn't quiet or peaceful. It was a tug of war with invisible threads pulling at friendships, alliances, and even rivalries that had simmered under the surface for years. The conflict over the spoon didn't just stay between Thomas and Martha, it exploded into the whole settlement like a wildfire. You watch as neighbours, once quiet and focused on survival, suddenly turn into amateur gossip mongers and strategists. Every whispered rumour and sideways glance fuels the fire, making the spoon dispute a social wildfire that no one quite knows how to put out. Gossip spreads faster than the morning fog here. Someone swears they saw Thomas hiding the spoon in a secret pocket. Another claims Martha threatened to throw it into the river if anyone tried to take it. The community takes sides, almost as if the spoon represents something bigger than itself. Justice, respect, or maybe just boredom on a slow day. This is where the human nature of the story shines. Alliances form over coffee, or whatever passes for coffee here. People choose their camps, and the line between friend and foe blurs. You notice the petty jealousies and long-standing grudges bubbling to the surface, all tied to that little piece of polished bone or wood. Interestingly, historians still debate how much these kinds of disputes were really about objects, and how much they reflected deeper social tensions in colonial life. Some suggest that the spoon was just an excuse, a spark that ignited years of simmering conflicts about land, leadership, and survival strategies. Others think the colony was genuinely stressed over resources, and the spoon was a rare, tangible symbol of scarcity. Meanwhile, the spoon dispute becomes a daily conversation piece, distracting the community from harsher realities like the approaching winter or the dwindling food stores. You get the feeling that this conflict is both a symptom and a distraction, a way for people to vent frustrations without confronting the larger challenges directly. It's fascinating and a little exhausting to see how a single spoon could hold so much power over a community's mood, shifting friendships and loyalties like a slow-moving earthquake. Food, you quickly realise, is the beating heart of this entire dispute. In a colony where every crumb counts, sharing meals becomes an art form and a battlefield, the spoon is more than a tool. It's the key to accessing those rare, precious moments of nourishment. You watch how families eye each other warily during communal meals, everyone subtly calculating who's holding the spoon and whether they'll get their fair share. It's a daily struggle not just to find food, but to eat it with dignity. Imagine having to slurp watery porridge with your fingers because the spoon is borrowed indefinitely, or worse, held hostage as a bargaining chip. You can practically taste the bitterness that comes with every stolen mouthful. People resort to sneaky tactics, hiding the spoon under cloth, slipping it into pockets, or creating elaborate excuses to get their hands on it. It's a kind of low-stakes espionage, played out around the dinner table. Historians still argue whether such utensil conflicts were unique to this colony, or a common thread in early settlements. Some think it's a universal story of scarcity breeding tension, while others see it as a peculiar quirk tied to this particular community's isolation and hardship. You overhear whispered plans about spoon raids and secret swaps, like a covert operation designed to outsmart your neighbours without starting an outright brawl. It's oddly impressive how much strategy goes into something as simple as eating. Who knew cutlery could inspire such cunning? The whole situation paints a vivid picture of survival, where every meal is a negotiation, every bite a small victory. The spoon isn't just metal or bone, it's a ticket to feeling human in an often unforgiving world. And in the midst of this, the colonists cling fiercely to their tiny piece of normalcy, even as it drives them apart. The nights in this settlement are long and restless, and so are the colonists' efforts to claim that coveted spoon. Under the cover of darkness, when the world is muffled and the stars peer down quietly, sneaky attempts to snatch the spoon become the highlight of the day's tension. You can almost feel the adrenaline in the air as people tiptoe, shadows stretching long and wavering, trying to outwit their neighbours without waking the whole village. Midnight manoeuvres are a risky business. Imagine crouching behind crates, holding your breath as you inch closer to the house where the spoon is believed to be hidden. One false step and you're caught, facing the wrath of an entire household, or worse, the scorn of the community. These clandestine operations are equal parts daring and desperate, showcasing how something so small can spark such elaborate plots. One quirky story tells of a man who disguised himself as a travelling peddler just to get close enough to swipe the spoon. Historians still argue whether his ruse truly succeeded, or if it was an exaggerated tale passed down to entertain restless listeners. Either way, the notion of espionage over a utensil adds a layer of intrigue you wouldn't expect in such a humble setting. These nighttime raids also reveal the fragile trust in the community. People start locking doors earlier, whispering warnings and watching over their possessions like hawks. The constant threat of theft creates a pervasive unease, turning neighbours into wary observers rather than allies. Despite the tension, there's a strange sense of excitement that pulses through these secretive attempts, a reminder that even in the harshest times, human creativity and daring find a way to shine, sometimes over the most unlikely prizes. Tracking the spoon's journey is like following a mischievous ghost through the settlement, always just out of reach, slipping from hand to hand with a bewildering mix of cleverness and chaos. You find yourself tracing its path as it hops between owners, often under absurd or elaborate circumstances, almost like a relay race with no finish line. The spoon's travels are marked by secret trades, quick-handed thefts, and surprising generosity. Sometimes it's passed as a gift to settle disputes, other times it's snatched in the heat of frustration. You'd think such an object would have a clear history, but no. The spoon's story is a tangle of competing claims, accidental exchanges, and outright bold moves. One colonist supposedly hid it inside a hollowed-out book, hoping no one would think to check there. Another legend says the spoon was once dropped into a stew pot during a chaotic meal and fished out hours later, slick with gravy but somehow still usable. Historians still debate whether these tales are fact or just colourful additions crafted to add mystery to the utensil's saga. The methods used to keep or reclaim the spoon border on the comical. You hear about a makeshift spoon safe, fashioned out of scrap wood, complete with a lock that was as unreliable as the colony's weather. Then there's the tale of a midnight spoon swap where two rival families exchanged it under watchful eyes, pretending to be friendly while plotting their next move. You realise the spoon's journey is more than just physical. It's a symbol of the colony's constant struggle to balance cooperation and competition. Every transfer reveals a new layer of strategy, trust, or betrayal. It's like a living artifact carrying the weight of personal stories, community history, and human resilience all wrapped into one. Tensions rise as the spoon's escapades start to affect daily life beyond just who gets to eat. You sense the colony's fragile social fabric beginning to fray. Simple exchanges at the market become loaded with suspicion, and even children start to mimic the rivalry, holding on to their own little treasures with exaggerated protectiveness. The spoon isn't just a utensil anymore, it's the epicenter of an unspoken war. Rumours fly fast and furious. Some say the spoon has been cursed, a rumour likely started by someone eager to scare others away from seeking it. Others whisper about secret meetings held to negotiate peace, or at least a truce. You can almost hear the quiet desperation underneath the chatter, the wish for the conflict to end before it consumes everyone. Interestingly, historians debate whether such small conflicts over everyday objects were common, or if this colony's story is unique. Some believe that these disputes were typical stress reactions to scarcity, while others see them as reflections of deeper cultural or economic pressures. Meanwhile, the colony's leaders grow concerned. Maintaining order becomes increasingly difficult when the population is divided by something as mundane, and yet as symbolic, as a spoon. You catch glimpses of whispered plans to mediate or impose rules, though whether these efforts succeed is another matter altogether. Amidst the chaos, a few voices call for calm, urging the community to remember what truly matters: survival, cooperation, and the thin threads of humanity that bind them together. But whether their words carry weight against the magnetic pull of that tiny spoon remains to be seen. It's fascinating how a small object can shape an entire society's mood and future, proving that sometimes history turns not on great battles or grand plans, but on the smallest pieces of everyday life. Amid the growing turmoil, a surprising development shakes the colony. The spoon is accidentally broken. You can almost hear the collective gasp, as if the colony's fragile heartbeat skipped a beat. The spoon's cracked handle and chipped bowl aren't just physical damage, they symbolise the community's own fractures, worn thin by conflict and scarcity. The breaking happened during a chaotic meal, a careless slip or a heated tug depending on who you ask. Some claim the damage was deliberate sabotage, others say it was simply an accident born of frustration and exhaustion. Historians still argue whether this moment marked the true turning point in the dispute, or if it was just another episode in a longer saga. The broken spoon became a powerful symbol overnight. People began to see it as a metaphor for their situation. A community strained, relationships fraying, and the fragile bonds of trust snapping under pressure. Some colonists treated the broken utensil with reverence, as if it were a relic, while others dismissed it as just another useless piece of scrap. A quirky side note: there's a tale of a child who tried to glue the spoon back together using tree sap, proudly presenting it to the adults as a hopeful gesture. It didn't hold, of course, but the attempt sparked a rare moment of shared laughter and tenderness. Despite the damage, the spoon continued to wield influence. Its broken state only intensified the stakes, with arguments about whether to discard it, repair it, or divide it into pieces fueling new rounds of debate. It was a reminder that even broken things can hold immense power. You watch as the colony grapples with this symbol of their shared struggles, caught between holding on and letting go. The broken spoon sparked an unexpected shift in the colony's dynamics. You notice how the physical fracture becomes a catalyst for emotional cracks as well. People who once clung tightly to their sides of the dispute start reconsidering what's truly important. After all, what use is a spoon that can't even hold soup? Some colonists begin advocating for a shared approach, an idea radical for its time: communal ownership. Imagine the shockwaves that would send through a community built on private claims and careful guarding of scarce resources. The proposal isn't welcomed everywhere. Many still cling to old grudges, unwilling to let go of past offences. Historians still debate how widespread such communal efforts were in early settlements. Were they born from necessity, or did they represent a deeper ideological shift? In this colony, the spoon dispute highlights the tension between individual survival instincts and the benefits of cooperation. You can feel the atmosphere subtly change as conversations shift from blame to negotiation. Meetings are held in hushed corners, where plans for shared use of utensils, and perhaps even food, begin to take shape. It's not smooth or easy. There are power plays and moments of resentment, but the seed of compromise is planted. On the lighter side, there's a story about a group that attempted to hold a spoon-sharing festival, complete with makeshift decorations and a badly sung song about unity. It didn't exactly fix everything, but showed a glimmer of hope and humanity amid the mess. The broken spoon's legacy thus becomes a paradox, a symbol of division that also opens the door to new possibilities for connection. You watch this delicate dance of conflict and collaboration unfold, a quiet prelude to change. The move toward communal ownership isn't without its challenges. You can sense the lingering tension in the air as the colony tries to shift from suspicion to shared trust. It's awkward, like a first dance where everyone's stepping on toes, unsure who leads. Sharing the spoon means sharing more than just a utensil. It means sharing vulnerability and responsibility. Some colonists refuse outright, fearing that letting go of control will lead to chaos or theft. Others embrace the idea, hopeful that cooperation could ease the daily grind of survival. It's a delicate balance, and every decision is a test of character and courage. Historians still argue whether these early experiments in communal living laid foundations for later social structures, or were simply temporary fixes under extreme conditions. In this colony, the spoon becomes a symbol for these broader struggles between independence and interdependence. Meanwhile, the day-to-day practicalities of sharing a single utensil lead to unexpected innovations. People invent cleaning rituals to keep the spoon sanitary and create schedules to ensure fair access. You can almost picture the sticky notes, if there had been any, to remind everyone of their turn, though it's mostly done by memory and good old-fashioned nagging. A quirky tale survives of a colonist who claimed the spoon developed a personality after being passed around so much, joking that it was now the colony's unofficial mayor. It's the kind of humour that helps soften the edges of hardship. Despite the difficulties, the community's tentative steps toward sharing mark a turning point. The spoon, once a weapon of division, slowly transformed into a tool of connection. Proof that even the smallest objects can carry the weight of change. As the seasons change, the colony's attitude toward the spoon, and each other, begins to mellow. You notice fewer furtive glances and more open conversations around shared meals. The earlier tensions, while not forgotten, become part of a collective story told with a mix of regret and humour. It's as if the spoon has finally earned its place as a symbol of both struggle and resilience. The community starts to develop new rituals around the spoon, turning it into a centerpiece for gatherings that celebrate cooperation rather than conflict. Imagine a simple wooden spoon displayed proudly during these events, a reminder of hard lessons learned and the power of unity in hardship. Historians still debate whether these rituals were spontaneous or carefully orchestrated by colony leaders to strengthen social bonds. Either way, the stories passed down about the spoon ceremony highlight the human desire to find meaning and hope even in the smallest things. You overhear children retelling the spoon saga, adding their own imaginative twists, like the spoon granting wishes or being guarded by invisible spirits. It's these legends, playful yet poignant, that help stitch the community's past into a shared identity. The spoon's journey from prized possession to shared treasure mirrors the colony's transformation. Where once it divided, it now brings people together, knitting a fragile but hopeful social fabric. And through it all, you realise this isn't just a story about a utensil. It's about how humans navigate scarcity, conflict and cooperation, the timeless dance of survival and connection. You feel the colony settling into a new rhythm, with the spoon now a symbol of compromise rather than contention. People take turns using it with a quiet respect that wasn't there before, almost as if the utensil carries an unspoken pact. The early chaos has given way to a tentative harmony, fragile but real. Even the grumpiest colonists can be seen sharing a knowing glance over the spoon during meals, a subtle acknowledgement of how far they've come. You might chuckle imagining them, once locked in silent wars over a single piece of cutlery, now passing it with a sigh and a shrug. Historians still debate how much this shift reflected larger changes in colonial governance and social norms, or if it was a unique moment born purely of necessity. Some argue that such small-scale stories illuminate the bigger picture of how communities survive and adapt under pressure. A quirky anecdote from this period involves a colonist who made a tiny, unofficial spoon throne out of scraps, claiming the utensil deserved royal treatment for its role in shaping their lives. It's silly but touching, proof that humour and affection often grow from hardship. You sense that this new piece, while tentative, is rooted in deeper understanding. The spoon no longer divides but reminds everyone of their shared struggles and mutual dependence. As the colony moves forward, the spoon quietly remains, a small but powerful symbol of the messy, complicated and ultimately human journey they've all been on together. The years stretch on, and the colony grows beyond the early days of spoon drama. You can almost hear the soft murmurs of history settling into place as the spoon becomes more legend than object. It lives on in stories told by firesides, whispered by parents to restless children, and even carved into wooden keepsakes passed down through generations. It's a curious thing how such a simple utensil came to embody so much. The struggle for survival, the fight for fairness, and the slow, often painful process of building community. You realise that the spoon's story is a mirror reflecting the broader human experience, our capacity for conflict, resilience, and eventually, connection. Historians still argue over the precise details. Who held the spoon longest? Who lost it first? Whether it was ever truly owned by anyone. But these debates matter less than the way the tale has shaped the colony's identity. In those quiet moments you imagine sitting around that same table, the spoon passed gently from hand to hand, a reminder of how far everyone has come. The noise of argument replaced by the soft clinking of cutlery, the taste of shared meals warming more than just stomachs. As you drift towards sleep, remember this. History isn't always about grand battles or famous leaders. Sometimes it's about the small things, the spoon, the shared meal, the human heart beating steady through hardship. Now, as the night deepens and your eyelids grow heavy, Let the image of that small weathered spoon settle softly into your mind. It's more than metal and ware. It's a quiet witness to countless hands, whispered stories, and the slow weaving of community. Think of the colonists, tired but hopeful, finding ways to share and survive amid scarcity and tension. Their journey isn't just history. It's a reminder that even in the smallest acts of sharing there is strength and peace. Let your breath ease slow and steady as you imagine the gentle clink of that spoon passing from one person to another, a simple rhythm comforting and familiar. The world outside may be vast and wild, but here, in this moment, there is a quiet kindness threading through time. So, rest easy, knowing that even the smallest things can hold great meaning, and that every story, no matter how ordinary it seems, carries the heartbeat of those who lived it. Sweet dreams.